New students, welcome to Legacy IAS Academy. Today we are going to discuss the second part related to the French Revolution, and we are going to discuss what is the impact of French Revolution, how the French Revolution has progressed, and who were the major players who were responsible or who were closely associated with the French Revolution. So without further ado, let us try to understand the whole chronology that how French Revolution has progressed. So yesterday we have discussed that due to the financial impact, the financial problem the France was facing due to its significant contribution in the American Revolutionary War or American War of Independence, as well as the expenditure incurred by the Louis XVI and his wife in the renovation of palaces. Apart from that, we have a lot of crisis, subsistence crisis, and everything that is going on simultaneously in the France. Now, the only way how France can basically save itself from going bankrupt is by imposing extra taxes. And for imposition of extra taxes, King Louis XVI, after almost 175 years, decided to call a meeting of States General. To remind you, States General were basically a three-layered structure or three-layered representation of society where we have clergy at the top, nobles at the middle, and the peasant classes at the bottommost section. So, for gaining assent on the new tax laws, somewhere in the year 1719, Louis XVI has called the meeting of a State General. However, as we have discussed yesterday, that people were very much angry about the financial situation of the king and also the subsistence crisis prevailing in France, as well as they were very much influenced by the ideas of enlightenment that were being flowing across the European region, especially France, in preceding years. So that is why the people, especially the third estate, decided that they are not going to allow to impose new taxes unless and until they are involved in the working of the government, unless and until they are given some representation, some form of representation in the government. And this is something that has created or precipitated a crisis. So due to this, in year same year when the meeting was going on, the state general meeting was going on, see, we have also another problem that as we discussed, the French society were divided into three sections: the clergy, nobility, and the peasant classes. However, as far as their vote is concerned, each of these categories has only one vote. But the problem was that 97% of the population of France was belonging to the third category, and despite that they have a similar vote as that the 1% or 2% of the upper classes. And this is what these classes wanted to change. They said that instead of having one vote for each sections, each tier, or each of the state, we should have an individual vote having one vote value to all of us. That is why, and that would have been very advantageous to the third estate, because if all the people have a single vote, then obviously by the basis of their high population, third estate would have very huge or very significant say in the decision of the government. However, this demand of the third estate was totally neglected and totally rejected by the king himself. So, upon rejection of their demand, the third estate decided that they will no longer consider king as their government or the representation of the government or head of the government. Basically, they wanted to create a national assembly, and by creating this national assembly, they want to take the sovereign powers away from the king and they want to create a self-government of their self. The reason behind this was very simple, because the people of third estate were having a long-term doubt over the constitution of France and the current or the present this relevance of the constitution of France, because they were very much influenced by the ideas of liberty, equality, and fraternity that was completely missing from the existing system of government. Not only that, as we have discussed, there has been for a continuously few years there has been development of new social order, a rise of new middle classes, which were called as bourgeois. So, as a combined effect of these two factors, the third estate felt very empowered, and it is due to this reason they decided to have a self-governing body that they called as a National Assembly. Further, once they decided or demanded to set up a national assembly, again this demand of the third estate was also rejected by the King Louis XVI. And basically, the Louis XVI, what he did, he put a lock on the assembly hall where the meeting was going on. And when he put a lock on the assembly hall, the third estate become infuriated and they went on to nearby tennis court, which was open. And in the tennis court, they again revived their oath or revitalized their oath of creation of national assembly. Seeing this, Louis XVI believed that the people are very much angry or very much enraged, and it is quite possible they might overthrow him and might even kill him. So, being fearful of his life and his family life, he then finally decided acquiesce to the demand of for creation of National Assembly, and he gave his final assent for creation of the same. Thus, once National Assembly came into power, it single-handedly began reforming a lot of different spectrum of French government and started scrapping the old system. At the same time, their main goal or eventual goal was to develop a constitution based on the principle of freedom, based on the principle of liberty and equality. And thus a new constitution has also been finally set up, or finally we can say unveiled by the same legislative assembly. However, the king was very much worried due to all this development, and thus he decided to put his army in different part of France. This stationing of army in different regions of France again created a kind of revolution, and people from different regions of France started to come toward the capital of France, and basically a mob that is called as Paris mob at that time has formed. It has mobilized, and they went on attack the Bastille prison in the protest. The reason why they attacked the Bastille prison, because they believe that there is a large amount of gunpowder that is hidden in this prison, and they wanted that to revolve to have a successful revolt against the French aristocracy and the French king. At the same time, National Assembly's some decisions also became quite unpopular because Assembly declared a war on Austria. If you look at the map here closely, Austria is a neighboring kingdom of the France, and that time it was also under the control of absolute monarchy. The reason why National Assembly declared war on Austria, because see, the problem is it is a kind of domino effect. If one country become or get rid of monarchy, or if one country become republic or sovereign, then the other countries, the people of other countries may follow the suit. And that is why the monarchy of the nearby region of the France become very much fearful, and they started supporting directly and indirectly the king of the France. And this is something that National Assembly did not wanted, and it is due to this reason they declared war on the nearby kingdom of Austria. However, this decision of war became quite unpopular because France started to lose in this war, and there has been a capture by Austrian Empire in several regions of the France. It is within these development that is going on in the France when you can understand we have armies of different countries that are occupying territories of different regions of the France. We are seeing a second revolution that broke out somewhere in year 1792. The second revolution was basically brought by a group of people that were known as Jacobins and the other group of people that are known as Sans-Culottes. So let us try to understand who were Jacobins and Sans-Culottes. Jacobin basically were the name given to a group of people who basically came and started to discuss about reformatory ideas in a Jacobin monastery. And the people who usually come here, they regularly come there, were known as Jacobins. So they were kind of revolutionary who wanted to have a violent overthrow of the kingdom and monarchy. Sans-Culottes, on other hand, were people who were belonging to the lower strata of society. The reason the name were given as Sans-Culottes, because culotte is something that in those period of time, the aristocratic class, the noble class used to wear a white color of socks, a kind of socks that goes all the way up to knees. And people who were poor, they could not afford such high or expensive clothes, and that is why they're called as sans. Sans means without, so without clothes. So these two category of people, Jacobins and sans-culottes, again brought a second wave of revolution. And in the second wave of revolution, the National Assembly that was set up during the first instant is being replaced by another body that is called as National Convention. Not only that, these violent revolutionaries who were also termed as terrorists because they were using violence and terror as a main method of the revolution, they finally abolished the monarchy and declared France as a republic. Not only that, they even tried to capture the king and his family. They were tried in the court, and finally, after a few months, the both king, that is Louis the 16th, and his wife Marie Antoinette were basically executed. Now, execution was also done in a very special French way that time. It was very popular, something that is called as guillotine. Guillotine is kind of, you can see the structure here, where we can say a wall like a structure, and in the central part of the wall we have a heavy sharp blade that is we can say hanging there. And to kill these people, what they used to do, they put the head of the people who they want to execute on the platform, the base of the platform, and finally the blade was released, and by cutting of the head, that is how the execution was done in those days of France. And this machine or execution machine was something that we can call as a guillotine. So basically, after this second wave of revolution between year 1794 to 1799, it was an era of chaos for the whole French society, for the whole French nation. The reason was very simple. The France was engaged in a lot of revolutionary war against the neighboring kingdom, and a lot of places France was basically losing this war. So it was going on against the France, and due to this reason, there are a lot of conscripts. Conscripts mean basically the people who are given a contract to fight a war. They were basically rebelling against the decision of the French government to send them in the war. And due to these rebellions and the we can say defeat in the revolutionary war, finally replacing the National Convention, a committee of public safety was formed, and the committee of public safety was given the responsibility to govern the nation. However, there were a lot of chaos that is going on that time, and this was a time which is also referred as one of the bloodiest time in the history of France, because this was the time, or we can say this was the time when there was a reign of terror by a well-known Jacobin called as Maximilien Robespierre. So, though the reign of terror was very short, but it was a bloody rule where we have execution of a lot of people. It is believed that more than 16,000 people were killed, executed by either guillotine, guns, cannons, or blades, because they were opposing the philosophies, opposing the way of governance by the Jacobins. So as the Robespierre and the Jacobins become more and more unpopular day by day in the France, finally they were also removed in another coup. And yeah, we can see that how this history plays out. That Robespierre, who was responsible for execution of king and the queen by guillotine, finally he was also executed in a similar manner by the other opposing group. And thus, after the removal of this terrorist organization, this Jacobins, a new legislative system has come into existence in France, and this new legislative system is something that is called as directory. So directory were basically made up of 5 people, and these 5 people were made the head of the government, or these 5 people were given the responsibility and roles of collectively heading the French government. However, if you talk about the reign of directly, it was again not very good for the French economy or the French society, because there was a large scale political corruption that was prevailing during that time. And due to this large scale political corruption, the economy of France was growing weaker and weaker day by day, months by months. And due to the weakness of the economy, there has been large scale riot that broke out in different part of France, especially due to the lack of bread, which was the staple food of the French people at that time. Thus, the political corruption coupled with weak economy has given rise to domestic unrest. And finally, not only there was a domestic unrest, but there was also a tussle of power was going on between two different groups of people. The one group was called as radicals, while the other group were called as the monarchists. Monarchists were basically aiming to restore the power of monarchy, or restore the power of the Bourbon Empire back, Bourbon dynasty back in the France, while radicals wanted to create a egalitarian society based on the principles of I discussed, liberty, equality, and fraternity. So there was a very violent power tussle going on between these two group of people. So within these circumstances, situation is very unstable, situation is very explosive. Now what happens, a general who has won several battles during the revolutionary war of France basically rode into the action, and finally 1799, as we know, the Napoleon Bonaparte come and rise into the power. Napoleon Bonaparte was totally completely backed by military. He has complete support of military, and it is due to this reason that he was able to remove both radicals as well as monarchists from the power competition, and finally he became ruler of the France. In 1799, under the leadership of Napoleon, a new constitution of France has come up, and he basically set up a system that is called as three consul system for governance of the France, out of which one consul was he himself, and he declared himself consul for the lifetime. After coming to power, he declared end of revolutionary war, and in year 1804, he declared himself as the emperor of the France. Now the reign of Napoleon is associated with a lot of different kind of activities, a lot of different kind of events. Some of these were positive, some of these were negative. So what has been the contribution of Napoleon Bonaparte as far as the France is concerned? So some of the most notable contribution that Napoleon has done for the France and France society, French economy, is that he was able to reform the civil code. Second, he was also the one who emphasized or envisioned the establishment of the National Bank of France, and he was the one who is responsible for creation of the first National Bank of France. Not only that, he also expanded the scope of public education, and due to his this contribution, or due to his this step, what happens? The literacy rate of France has started to become much and more higher. Not only that, since Napoleon was a very able general, he understood the importance of infrastructure for development of the economy, for development of the society, and he focused extensively on infra development such as roadways and other kind of infrastructure such as lights, street lamps, and all these kind of things. Not only in France or within the French territory, his contribution can also be understood on the scale of wider European continent. So first of all, as under the leadership of Napoleon Bonaparte, French waged a lot of battles and engaged themselves in a lot of wars across the European continent. What happens in other countries, for example, countries such as Germany, countries such as Switzerland, Austria, Liechtenstein, and all these countries, Germany even, that were under the control of France for a certain period of time. It is during this time that liberalization of property right were emphasized upon. And not only that, Napoleon has also played an important role in ending the segregation practices of Jews in a ghetto kind of situation. Not only that, he was very much, we can say, influenced by the idea that all men are equal, and thus he was not in favor of social hierarchy, social stratification. And due to these reasons, that nearby country also, the people of nearby country also started to have a kind of revolution against their rulers, against their kings. However, since despite all these revolutionary and reformatory measures that Napoleon has undertaken, we also have to understand that since Napoleon was a military general, he has a very high military ambition, and due to this, he waged a lot of war against the neighboring kingdoms of the France. Due to this, he finally waged a war against the United Kingdom or the British Empire, and in Battle of Waterloo, he was finally defeated somewhere in year 1815, and finally he was exiled to the St. Helena, an island in the Mediterranean, where he died in year 1822-21, and thus the reign of Napoleon also came to an end. Now, the most important thing we have to understand, we have till now understood that what were the reasons behind the French Revolution, what was the general events that has happened during the French Revolution. Now we have to understand that what has been the impact of French Revolution on France in particular and in world in general. So first of all, let us try to understand the contribution of French Revolution in the France. So the first major impact of the French Revolution was, as we discussed, the monarchy that were Bourbon dynasty that was ruling France for almost 400 years. The monarchy came to an end. The king and the queen were executed, and finally, the monarchy was replaced by a republic, the French Republic, which was run by the elected deputies. The second important event that has happened due to the impact of French Revolution is there has been an end of feudal system, not only in the France but even in the neighboring countries. And this feudal system was largely replaced by the elected institutions where each person or each individual were given a right of same equal vote. The third is fact we also can see on the culture of the France. See, one thing we have to understand that even during those times, the French culture was very much emulated by all other neighboring kingdoms except Great Britain. The French language was the lingua franca of the elitist people of all the countries, nearby countries. The French dressing sense was something that was followed by the rulers and the nobles and the aristocrats of all the neighboring countries. Even the French food habits, the French paintings, the French, we can say, the living way of living, all these were copied by the nearby countries. So that is why France had a very significant impact on the psyche of the people of the neighboring kingdom. And thus, when the French Revolution happened, its effect on the culture can also be observed because the whole cultural spectrum of the European countries were permeated by the ideas and the new visions of the French Revolution. So these were the impact of the French Revolution on the France. Now let us try to understand the impact of the French Revolution in general sense. So one term that we use today in modern day is something that we are well aware of, is something called as nationalism. Nationalism can be in simple term defined as a allegiance, or we can say devotion to one's own nation, to one's own nation state or one's own country, and placing the interest of country or placing the national interest above own personal as well as the group interest. So this is something that is called as nationalism. So as during the French Revolution, under the leadership of Napoleon Bonaparte and even under other able military generals, since French invaded a lot of different countries, the ideas that were behind the French Revolution were able to permeate among the society or able to permeate among the people of these neighboring countries. And as France wanted to control large part of territories of different countries, the idea of nationalism start to take shape among the mind of these people. And we can say that it is largely due to the contribution of French Revolution that the later on the 19th and 20th century, all across the world, different countries, we have seen the development of the idea of nationalism, including India itself, and that is one most significant contribution of the France. Not only the ideas of nationalism, but several other ideologies can also trace their birth from the French Revolution. Some of the most common and well-known ideologies are something that we can refer as socialism, communism, liberalism. So all these ideas were basically traced back to French Revolution. Now see, we have to understand that French Revolution did not directly lead to idea of communism. What it revolution has done, that it has created an intellectual and social environment within which people from different sections of society, people belonging to different liberal intellectual group, can come and discuss about the alternative forms of government. And it is during these discussions that there are a lot of people who are discussing about the abolition of monarchy. There are a lot of people who have started to discuss about the democracy and its positive and negative impact. There are a lot of people that have started to discuss about the egalitarian nature of society that can free society from all the ills. And it is due to this that the ideas of socialism and communism have basically given by the other philosophers such as Karl Marx, Friedrich Engels in the later stages of the time. The third most important contribution, in especially in ideological sense, we can say, is the idea of liberalism can also be traced back to the French Revolution. What is liberalism? Now, liberalism is something that in simple terms can be defined as a principle or an idea that is based on the principles of liberty and equality. So it is during French Revolution that some very important events have taken place. One of the most notable event that has happened after the abolition of monarchy and after the killing of Louis XVI is that the French government declared or published a declaration of man and citizen, and this is considered to be the first constitution of the modern world, the first constitution of France, which and the basis of liberty and human rights can be traced back to this particular document. The second important event that has happened is the idea of liberty, equality, and fraternity gained very much traction and became a lingua franca of the revolution in different countries as well. And the third most important event that has happened that can be associated with liberalism is that after or during the French Revolution, all the people or all the men, we can say to be more precise, were given equal voting rights, and that is when we can see the idea of universal male suffrage has come into existence. So these three events collectively can be associated with the liberalism, and that is something that can be associated with the French Revolution as well. The fourth and most important impact of French Revolution that we can see in the different countries of Europe is the elitist people in other countries also started to lose their power, and the general masses started to have a kind of revolution against them. And thus, due to the elitist or the nobility class, the cleric class, they have captured all these large proportion of wealth, and they were opposed to any kind of revolutionary transformation, whether it is in social sense, political sense, or economic sense. Now, after the defeat of these elite people, economic growth of many countries started to occur at very high rate, and even the rate of urbanization we can see have increased during this time. And the fourth most important contribution of French Revolution has been in the loss of authority to the church. To remind you, before French Revolution, that especially in the France, the clergy used to consist of about 1% total population. However, they used to take 10% taxes, and they also did not pay any kind of taxes, and they have 10%. They have this rights over the 10% of the agricultural land as well. So after French Revolution, the French church started to lose its authority, and also a lot of priests were there, nuns were there, they were persecuted, they were killed, and thus the church started to lose its grip over the people. Now, we have discussed in the beginning of this video that French Revolution is also considered as the mother of revolution. Why it is considered as mother of revolution? Because it has inspired a lot of revolution across different parts of the world. So some of the notable contribution of the French Revolution, first we can understand, is the Irish Rebellion drew heavily from the idea and the concept of French Revolution that went on between 1798 to 1921. The Irish Rebellion, in short, was a rebellion of independence of Ireland from the British hegemony, from the English hegemony. Similarly, the most significant revolution that we can trace to French Revolution is the Haitian Revolution. Now, why this revolution is very unique? Because Haiti at that time was a French colony called as Saint Dominique, and it was basically controlled by the French, some of the French elite class, and there were large scale labors, large number of slaves were there that are working as labor. So Haitian revolution is considered as the only revolution in the history of mankind where slaves have been able to overthrow the existing government and have created their own government. So not only from the point of view of slavery, but Haitian Revolution plays or can be given a very important place in the whole history of racism as well. The third contribution of French Revolution is igniting the idea of Italian War of Independence. Italy that time used to be the colony of Austrian Empire, and the Italian people started to fight against the Austrian Empire, against the Austrian kings and monarchs, and wanted to have a separate state of themselves. And then last but not least, it also has ignited a lot of different Latin American evolution, where we have revolution in countries such as Colombia, Ecuador, Peru, Venezuela. So all these countries were basically started to revolt against their colonial masters, who were basically Spanish and Portuguese. And one of the most common name, or one of the most famous name, who has led this Latin American revolution was Simon Bolivar. So under the leadership of Simon Bolivar, a lot of Spanish and Portuguese colonies in South America started to gain their independence as well. So these were the four major revolutions that drew heavily or was inspired heavily from the idea of French Revolution. Now, what is the contribution of French Revolution as far as India is concerned? So the 18th century, or the time when the French Revolution was going on, was a time when there was a rise of intellectual classes, radical classes, liberal classes in the India as well. And as we know all about Raja Ram Mohan Rai, who is also considered the father of Indian Renaissance, he was very much influenced by the ideas rooted in the French Revolution, especially ideas such as liberty, equality, and fraternity. Not only that, even the ruler of Mysore, Tipu Sultan, was very much influenced by the French Revolution ideas, and he was so much influenced by the French Revolution idea that he has set up a Mysore Jacobin club, similarly on the line of Jacobin club that used to exist in the France, whose member was this Robespierre. Even after independence, when we were drawing our constitution, we have relied upon the ideas of liberty, equality, and fraternity. And if we look at the preamble of our constitution, these three words have been clearly mentioned. So this is something that we can also understand is taken from the idea of French Revolution, which is today also is a French motto. So these were the major contribution in the ideological sense that India has derived from the French Revolution. So what we can say in conclusion of French Revolution, simply what we can understand, that the French Revolution has often been called the start or the beginning of the modern world. And while this might be an exaggeration, as per many historians, as per many experts, we can actually all of us can agree that despite not, even though it was an exaggeration, it certainly was an epochal event that has permanently changed not only the French mindset but all the European mindset. The ideas such as patriotism, devotion to the state instead of a single monarch, a single king, mass warfare, all these kind of ideas which were earlier could not have been imagined, all became solidified in the modern mind. So this is what we can understand has been the contribution and impact of French Revolution in France, in the Europe, and all across the world. So that is all about French Revolution. I hope you understood about the basic nitty-gritties and the basic things such as the causes, the nature of revolution, as well as the impact of the French Revolution. So if you like this video, please like, share, and subscribe. And also you can comment that what is the next topic in the series of world history you want us to cover, and we'll definitely cover it. That is all for today. Thank you very much.